Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's Andrew Turner, founder and host of the Praxi Pod. And today we have Mr. Angus Gow. How are you, Angus?
I'm all right. It's busy, which is good. I like being busy.
We've got to keep you busy because otherwise you'll get into trouble. And then we don't want you to be in trouble.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's it. If I'm not busy, I get bored, and that's when I start doing other
That's
things.
when you start building new stuff.
Yeah, writing music or something kind of like probably more creative and maverick. So yeah, got to stay focused.
Exactly. We've got to think about what is Angus doing at the moment. Where is Angus? Yeah, where is he? Oh, he's here. So welcome to the Praxi Pod. On the Praxi Pod, we talk about data, we talk about AI, we talk about Gen AI, and this is a new episode, a new, you could say, series of interviews and sessions with esteemed people from the industry. And I remember the first time that I actually met Angus. I went on a very long train ride. Halfway across, felt like going across Russia, but actually it was down to Wales.
There's a lot of connections between Wales and Russia, I should say.
Was there?
Sebastopol is just up the road from here.
Okay, but this was a place called Cardiff, and we were on a little mission to try and help where Angus was running some very, very interesting things and getting very involved with lots of data stuff. And it was a very enjoyable engagement with Angus. And despite what happened afterwards, we still kept in contact, and here we are today. Even more remarkable. So, welcome to the show today.
Yeah, good.
And where are you joining us from today?
Still in Cardiff. So I think since the lockdown, I've been holed up in a home office that I haven't managed to escape out of. Every now and again, I manage to get out of Cardiff and back into London or down into Cardiff itself. But yeah, I mean, there's worse places to be based. It's sunny today, and I'm in the Roath Park area of Cardiff, which is nice place to be based.
And do you like rugby? I've never asked you if you like rugby.
Rugby, I like rugby. I like it when Scotland win. It's that's like been a rare occasion.
So, like, if you're like what's it called, the rugby ground down in Cardiff? What's it called?
The Principality. Well, you've got Cardiff Arms Park.
So you don't go in the Wales section, when they score, you go, oh no, but.
Yeah, So
being a Scot, obviously, rather than being Welsh.
My brother-in-law, he's got debenture seats at the Principality. So whenever Scotland play Wales, and I think probably when he's convinced Wales is going to win, I usually get invited along, and everyone's all sat together. So I am sat in a group of Welsh people cheering on the Scots, and it tends to be pretty good humoured. Although if I go, Scotland has tended to lose. So it's
okay. So that's like head down or go for a Cornish pasty or something like that.
Yeah,
or a haggis. Go and chew on a haggis or something.
More like get a pint of Guinness.
Okay, so you're in a Welsh rugby ground, and you're Scottish, and you're drinking Irish beer. Okay,
drinking Irish beer. Yeah, that's kind of how we've done it. My kids were all born in England, but their mum's Welsh and their dad's Scottish, so they can play for any of the sides.
Oh right, okay, they can hedge. Okay, that's good. So yeah, so thanks for coming on the show today. The topic I know we've been talking about quite a bit recently is this whole this AI tsunami that's kind of hit the whole world in the last 18 months, and I know that you've been right in the thick of it. I mean, for the people that are listening to this episode, I mean, could you just explain a bit of your kind of pen portrait? Because I know it's quite an interesting journey you've been on, and then obviously we can get into kind of the meat and two veg of what you're seeing in the kind of the state of AI and what's real and what's not real, or what's kind of what you call it BS, as you could call it.
Yeah, and it's kind of AI goes a long way back for me. I think originally when I was at university, I did computer animation, and so lots of computer animation at the time was development. There wasn't the kind of the systems that you get nowadays, and so a lot of it had to be calculated. So being able to work out things like how a tree blows in the wind or how a school of fish looks, there was lots of modeling in that, which is a real world, and the basis of a lot of that is what drives AI. So AI for me was just a bunch of boring statistics at scale. And so I spent most of my professional career in software development working with algorithms in some capacity. I mean, one of the biggest first projects that I did was in like 1999, where was involved in specifying and kind of laying out the personalization system for lastminute.com.
Oh, really? Oh, you know Brent then, do you?
Yeah, so I was quite early into them. So when I first started with them, we were in an office on Regent Street, which was tiny. It was like the size of this room, and there was like 10 people there. Trying to remember the guy's name. They had a really good tech guy. I think it was a guy called Phil Bennett. Really, really nice. They were all really nice people. It was a great company to work for. And you got a sense that you could achieve anything. It went from that like small group of people to like 300 people at the Conical building at the top of Marble Arch. But there was a whole like.
Oh yeah, you mean the one that was on the corner?
Yeah. Which is
really, you were there, were you? Okay.
Yeah, it's gone. It's gone now. So it was there, and then moved the development. There was so many developers that he moved down to Brook Street.
Oh right, okay.
We actually, at the time, there was no internet connection between Conical Building and Brook Street, so we had a microwave transmitter that was like a satellite dish hanging out the window that connected the two buildings together. It was mad. The guy that they brought in from did product, he started to put together this universal content and product taxonomy, which was the first time really worked through specking out what the data that you needed and how you would be able to,
like all the attributes and stuff like that.
yeah,
and articles.
and make kind of out
make it search, make it.
Yeah, like out gambles about probability of whether somebody would be interested in this or interested in that, and being able to.
Oh, like the kind of, if you buy this, then it recommends this, and it's like a basket, like basically basket kind of growth.
And there was a company involved in that called Net Perceptions, which was, and this.
Yeah, I remember those guys. Yeah.
And Amazon, I think Amazon bought them in the end. So a lot of the work that was done fed into Net Perceptions, which then was bought by Amazon and then became Amazon's recommendation engine. So a lot of the AI was really about recommendations, working out the probability of whether somebody would be interested in this or interested in that. And a lot of my career at that time was all e-commerce based. So really stayed in e-commerce and internet development. So there's always been an aspect of what I've done which has had machine learning or some kind of big data. My main interest was big data. So I always felt that if you got the data right, everything else becomes so much easier. But that's
absolutely 100%. Yeah.
And most of the problems that I've had to deal with, like especially at a senior level, has been data corruption issues, just data going out of shape or data not being managed properly. It's so much cheaper to get that right at the start than have to fix it at the end. And I had the scars to deal with that. So I mean,
it's interesting because I actually wrote on Substack yesterday about, do you trust your data? Like the AI, basically about the AI algorithms. So it's the classic garbage in, garbage out. If you don't get it right, if you haven't got the foundations right on your product master, your lastminute.com example.
Mm-hmm.
When I was at Tesco, exactly the same problem. Or the price, the price on this mobile phone is wrong.
Yeah.
Refund policy, refund breach.
Yeah,
risk, trading risk, quick.
That was the first job that I had was working for Asda, and my job was, I'd hit the jackpot actually. The job I had to do was pricing clerk. So it was just on
price integrity.
Yeah, and I had to walk around the shop on a Sunday and basically fill a basket full of stuff and do price checks on the whole thing. And so my job was to make sure that all the prices were accurate, because the last thing you want is something going through the till at the wrong price. So yeah, maybe it kind of stems from that. The problem with the Asda store is that Archie Norman, who was the CEO at the time, he had a big estate in Scotland that he would go to. So he would regularly stop in
his local shop. Yeah.
at the Asda store, and then he would want to do a spot check. Probably 24 times in the few years that I was working part time there, I'd have to walk around the store with Archie Norman and people panicking, with my gun going boop, boop.
They're all trying to run ahead of you. Guess which category or which aisle you're going to go down.
But that was it. So there was loads of things. I knew where everything was. Like I had this, like if someone, and you know what it's
encyclopedia knowledge.
There was 30 odd thousand items in the grocery department at the Asda Dunkeld Road, and I could pretty much tell you where everything was exactly. I had this kind of map of the entire thing, and it was always normal to me, but that stood me in good stead. So I went through years, I could remember IP addresses, and lots of things which are useless to people have always been quite useful to me.
Well,
so,
I can remember lots of TPNs, which we call Tesco product numbers.
Yeah.
It's like you start to become a bit sad. It's a bit geekish, really.
Yeah.
It's good for when you want to test things, but anyway.
Yeah. So the data has always been a theme that's kind of run through things. So I think it starts with the data. It starts with good data, and I've always taken it from that. And AI is something that you can do really well with good data. And we did a lot of that work at I Want One of Those. So that was probably the first really proper senior job that I had. I was the IT director at I Want One of Those, and took on marketing as well, mainly because the marketing to drive that sort of business was very aligned to what the technology platform needed to do, and it was very data driven. So
did I Want One of Those? Was that online, or was that actually, did they have physical stores as well?
No, they didn't. It didn't have physical stores. I always thought that it would be good to do that, but there was a partner. What was called Red? Was it Red 5? There was a partner that we had that had a concession in Selfridges. So we used to do that stuff. We supplied into shops, so we had a wholesale side to the business, and it was good. It was mostly online, but we did a lot of catalogs, so it was online and mail order. We're putting out about 1 million catalogs a year. So it was that was quite a big marketing push, and it was very targeted. We knew exactly who was getting a catalogue. You know, we were very good at measuring the basket size and how much we needed to spend in marketing in order to drive the baskets. So it was very data driven. A lot of that was statistically based. So we worked with people who were able to kind of, I suppose, work that data in a way which gave us a big advantage over our competitors. So we did things with SEO and PPC that I don't think other people were doing, and Google were very interested in asking us. So we would regularly have to go into Google and kind of answer questions about how we were, driving down our PPC costs, but
how you were hacking the algorithm
ladder. So it was really interesting.
You're not spending enough with Google. That's the problem. You need to spend more.
Yeah, that was the gist of most of that. How come you're ranking higher and spending less? That we need to fix that. So it was very, very interesting. And we were pretty good at doing what we were doing. I think a lot of people knew we were a relatively small retailer, but people knew who we were. We had a pretty high profile. So it was good. It was great working there. Eventually got bought by the Hut Group. So that
did it really?
Yeah.
By Matthew.
Yeah. There's I had, the writing was on the wall. I think the Hut Group had a very clear strategy on how they were buying businesses up, and so I left then and went over to Air Menzies International and got into logistics, which was kind of more the data-driven type stuff. Went into supply chain logistics from there, which is a lot more boring, but actually from a technical perspective, there's a lot of challenges, a lot of interesting challenges in moving boxes around on a global basis. I met some really amazing people in all of that, and some great companies growing up. I mean, the one I came across was Algerian Zigzag, which was like the return path logistics. So being able to deal with returns. So if you're distributing stuff out, especially in clothing, a lot of it goes out, comes back. And Zigzag were set up to kind of do that on an international level. And the guys at Sequel Logistics enabling that sort of stuff. So there's loads of technology advances that just make the everyday things happen. Like, how do you get a parcel to a person? How do you get it back? And all the stuff that goes on in the middle of that. There's also a thread, I think, that runs through
clothing as well as like the style, size, and color, isn't there? That's the other complication.
Yeah,
about how you actually represent the data and how you manage the data. It's like got multidimensional.
Yeah, and how you store it in the most effective way, like even like VAT. You know, like moving stuff into bonded warehouses, so you're not paying VAT until you're actually in the final mile dispatch. There's loads of challenges that most people don't really have to think about, and that lays out technical challenges, which are interesting problems to solve. And that's another thing that
because that's we're talking about the stock value and the stock volume and how you represent that on the systems and how you manage that flow and stuff like that.
Yeah, and the cost, like how do you represent? Because all of that stock is assets on somebody's book. I think that's why a lot of retailers they go under, because they're not good at managing that. I've seen retailers where they're like, oh yeah, we just send that to the airfield, and they've got an airfield which is like where they store in the Ark of the Covenant. It's kind of got 20 years worth of distressed stock piled up on it.
It's like a desolate wasteland.
Yeah. And then I worked with some great developers who developed systems that were able to kind of predict pallet configurations and be able to optimize the costs of flying things around. So we introduced a lot of like AI into these processes. But again, it's dependent on getting the data right. So a lot of the focus is on really accurate data collection and then being able to kind of use machine learning and machine learning type algorithms to optimize the flow of things. And we were doing that at a time when a lot of freight forwarders and cargo people weren't really thinking about that at all. So I had this kind of segue into logistics, and then I've been doing fractional CTO work on and off since about 2012. So I've been fairly self-sufficient, worked lots of different projects from small to big. And that's where I got into CreditSafe, where we met, started off as a short consultancy agreement, really as part of fractional CTO. And it became clear it was a bigger project, and I joined them full time.
They locked the door and they didn't let you leave for a while.
Yeah, something like that. So it's and that was, it was a great project, that, and like a big digital transformation. Again, a company that is sort of flies slightly under the radar, but it does punch, quite high. And great company to work for. I still think they could do more with the data that they've got, but they kind of know the lane they're in, and they're very good at that lane. So then, I was there for 3 and a bit years, and then the project came to an end, and I don't really do business as usual. I think that's the conclusion I came to quite early on, is I like things to be changing or innovating. And so I went back into fractional work, and have been working across various companies, and increasingly into AI, which I find really, the way that AI has taken off in the past 2.5 years is, I still can't quite get my head around it, because I've been part of an AI group that meets once a month for 7 years now. And the first 5 years of that was really just sitting in a room with people going, that'll never work. I remember there was one guy that we saw who had invented a new type of doorbell, which was able to kind of see things going on, and we laughed. And he was like, well, I'm going to sell this to Amazon. And we laughed again. And he did, and that's the Ring doorbell stuff. We saw it.
Oh wow, he was part of the group. Oh wow.
Yes, we've had guys from NVIDIA. We've because someone turns up and goes, "I've reinvented a doorbell." You're like, when you see
it's got a different tune.
Yeah, we were all very skeptical. The group was kind of split. I was on the skeptical side. So I was very skeptical. It's like sitting around with people talking about when the singularity was going to come along. I'm like, it's some mad cult. This, Kurzweil's singularity is never happening. But maybe it is, and I think that's the change over the past couple of years is that I was definitely blindsided by how fast the large language models just suddenly kind of went poof when they were working. Yeah, I mean, that's opened up a whole different set of opportunities, which I would have been 3.5 years ago. I'd have just went, nah, that's.
Well, it did kind of come. I suppose it did kind of come. I suppose it was obviously bubbling for a while, and it kind of came into the kind of, I suppose, people's awareness just suddenly went through the roof, didn't it? In that, there was November 2022, I think, whatever it was.
It was the Google had been working on things for a while. So the transformer model, it'd been kicking around, and I suppose at the time, the most advanced thing that was going on was Go, the AlphaGo project, and things that DeepMind were doing, which was all really interesting. I think that the stuff that they were working on was absolutely groundbreaking. But the solving these games like Go, and Go is extremely complicated. I'm not taking that away from it, but it's kind of like, so how do I use that? How does that kind of make
what's the practical application of it?
Yeah, and I think ultimately that led to the large language model work, which started off at Google, and then OpenAI took on. There was quite a few people into it, but it's really reflective in my mind of the start of the internet, that it was the same sort of thing. There's a bunch of people all kind of milling around, and they've got
it's like a bit like underground, isn't it? And then it becomes like mainstream,
and it just exploded. And the amount of money that then piles into that means that they're able to kind of really exploit the technology. And we are where we are today. We've got a whole new set of tools, and these are massively transformative.
Yeah, it's interesting on the usage. I mean, I was looking at some stats the other day, and back in November 22, it was like 1 million people a week were using ChatGPT. As of I think March this year, it's 400 million a week, and they're trying to get to 1 billion a week by the end of this year, I think.
Yeah, but yeah, that's
incredible.
It sounds like big numbers, but it's not in the greater scheme of things. So, like, if you look at usage of social media, it runs into the billions and billions. So I
think it's the eighth most popular website now, something like that. But obviously, it's behind Google and YouTube, and it's just overtaken X, I think, in terms of popularities.
And so there's still a long way to go. It's kind of like, I suppose for us, we're in that ecosystem. And if you're on LinkedIn, you're seeing it every day, day in and day out. It's just like post after post after post, 10 ways you can do this, 10 ways you can make money out of that, 10 of the best prompts you're ever going to see, 10 of it. And it's just noise. And that noise is almost distracting from the reality of what's there. And I think the reality ultimately is that the technologies people really are confused about how to apply it, like how to actually use this. And on an individual level, I think there's interesting things happening. Like, people are using ChatGPT or Perplexity more than they're using Google. So, but the interesting thing about that is that Google's still being used because these tools are still using Google to kind of so Google's not losing anything. It's just the way that they're being interacted.
It's like the user access is through ChatGPT or through Claude or whatever, Anthropic or whatever.
Yeah, and that's I think that's quite an interesting dynamic that gets lost in the hype, is that companies like Google have been gearing up for this for a long time. So, adding in the AI results above the search results is something that they've now started to do right across the board. I think the European Union just told them that they shouldn't be doing that, or there's issues definitely with that when it comes to financial services and how you're then offering advice, say through Google. Like, if I do a Google search for a loan and the AI comes back and says, yeah, you should do this, then there's I don't think that's a grey area. I think that's something that shouldn't happen. So the guardrails need to be really worked on around that, but it's everywhere, and we're dealing with it all the time, and it's being used in also in appropriate places. So I think we still need to figure out where the best use of this is, and how we make that work. So for me, we're at the start. It's like this is like 1995 in the internet development. That's where we are.
So the analogy being, what is it, 1991 or I can't remember, was it 1991 when Tim Berners-Lee did the first ARPANET stuff? Was it, or was it a bit later than that? I can't remember. So you said we're a few years in, basically. That's what your analogy is that right?
I think Tim Berners-Lee did the HTML stuff, and that would have been round about when. Well, the first time I was aware of it was when I started at university in '93, and I came across markup languages and was really interested in the HTML work, and that was the first time I became aware of that. Yeah, but by '95 there was. I remember the first website. I don't know if you go back to this. The first website search was like a page that you could go to, which just had a long list of the websites that were available, like 150 links on it.
I was like a master
It was like
dictionary or whatever.
It was the start page. It was like there was a start page you could go on, and that was and as websites became available, they just added to the bottom of the list.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and that was, and I think we're a little bit further ahead than that, but I think we are not far off. It was like one of the attendees to the AI monthly meetup that I go to said that I won't ever be as slow as it is today, and I think that's quite an interesting way of looking at it. Is that actually when we look back on where we were 10 years ago, 10 years from now, we'll be amazed at how basic it looked.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. So like quantum leaps forward kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think we're not making quantum leaps anymore. Like there's and with all the hype that's going on, there's a feeling that it's kind of, logarithmically accelerating, and it's really not. I think there's like small advances happening, but they're kind of, they talk about it a lot, so it feels like there's a lot happening, but it's not.
But do you think there's a kind of a shakeout now? When you mentioned before about this current state of AI, what's your sense in the stuff that you're working on or have been talking to people about? Is it going through that kind of normal hype cycle? Yeah, it's like we had this kind of the inflated view of what's going to happen. It's all going to do X and Y, Z, and now it's kind of like come down. It's getting more focused now. Is it? Would you say, or is it?
I stopped paying attention to the hype because that was just increasing my blood pressure massively. Especially with the sort of work I do, I'm still actively developing. I've got kids that are interested in going into computing, and so I think about what the future holds for them. And there's a lot of talk about jobs disappearing and everything else, and I just think that actually the key skills that you need to succeed in most of these jobs, especially in development, is your ability to learn quickly, unlearn things, and be creative. Like I think that having a creative element is the difference between being really good at something and just being a technician.
Well, that's what I mean. That's interesting you raise that, because it's interesting. Because I think I agree with you. It's developing and writing software is a creative art. Yeah.
And
it's a skill.
Yeah, it's no accident. Donald Knuth's kind of seminal work on this is called The Art of Computer Programming, because it is an art form. It's solving problems by thinking laterally and taking left field. The innovation happens when somebody takes like a left field view of something, and that's the how we've got to where we are with AI, is that the transformer model took it from a different angle that no one had thought of, and you're still going to have that. And I think the AIs are not good at that. There's a kind of point where people would refer to it as divine inspiration. I can't see AIs having divine inspiration. They react, and that's what these models do. You ask it a question and it gives you an answer. I think partly the problem is that it's compelled to give you an answer, which is where hallucinations come from. It basically has to say something, so it just bullshits. and that we're getting better at dealing with that. It's the
Wait, he has to give you an answer, but also is it this thing that I don't know if we spoke about this, but I spoke about it with somebody else about it's trying to make you happy as well. Is that the way it's being trained?
That's kind of. I think there's a lot of quite interesting psychological smoke and mirrors that goes on, and that's one of them. And it's quite insidious, actually. It's kind of it's that social media thinking, that because we've been manipulated for a long time by AI, and it's like well documented things like Facebook, nudging people and, being able to, guide people in particular directions they want. And, we had that in the UK with Brexit and, all of the things that went on in the background with Dominic Cummings and the way that they marketed and nudge people. All of that was driven by AI. And that to me is like that's where the ethics of it kick in. It's like people talk about the ethics of the things like where it's dealing with like difference between male and female or different colors, races and creeds and all of this sort of thing, and you've got biases one way or another. I think the ethics for me is if I'm going to use an AI model to manipulate you into doing something you didn't necessarily want to do, that is absolutely over the line. It's something that we should not be doing. Developers should be saying no. We're not going to develop that stuff, and that's where the ethics argument lies. But it always gets
that's what came out in that film, The Social Dilemma, isn't it? That was that 5 years ago, that Netflix film.
Yeah, and there's no doubt these are powerful technologies.
But used appropriately with integrity and all those kind of things. That's what you're saying, is that's the thing you got to be careful of.
Absolutely, and I think as developers we need to be very aware of that and not and speak out about where that line is based. I think it's that's part of we're building these systems, and so we should be ethical in the way that we're working across them. I think that's where where it's being polite and like how it's working back. It's almost like it's kind of, I don't know. It's like, what's it trying to do? Is it trying to kind of lull you into some kind of love affair with it? That you'll turn around and go, well, actually, I've got more of a relationship with ChatGPT. It gets into the kind of realms of the
the film Her, yeah, with Joaquin Phoenix, yeah,
and that's. Yeah, it's interesting, like, and the idea that you have to be polite to it. I've got a, like, somehow, I'm talking to it like it's a person. It's really not. It'll answer my question whether I'm polite or not. In fact, the more concise I can make it without any fluff or punctuation, the better the response, probably. So. I don't muck around with any of that.
What about when you speak to it in a Scottish accent? Does it still understand you?
That is the biggest advance that's happened, is that it actually understands me.
Well, you go, where is the iron brew?
Yeah.
Where are the fried Mars bars?
I'm trying to get to floor 11.
Yeah. Where's the pint of heavy? Exactly.
So Siri still has a problem. I think that's not moved forward. Alexa, definitely no chance of being able to talk to that. But actually, ChatGPT's speech to text and the speech interface is really good. So it's getting better, and I think that's I'm looking forward to that. I don't want to be kind of typing stuff into a computer if I can just talk to it. And that's what I was talking to someone about this the other day. What does future hold? Is it going to be more Skynet and Terminator, or is it going to be more Star Trek? And I think it's actually Star Trek.
You can have a headset on, and you just don't have to think. You just have to think what you've the impulses.
Yeah.
Of what the code needs to be, and then suddenly the code appears.
Yeah.
In production.
I could then work when I'm asleep. It's just not just vibe code it, but kind of like intuit the code into space, and that's the interesting thing.
That's what you should do. Is you should put a LinkedIn post about, rather than forget vibe coding. It's now dream coding.
Dream coding.
Right? Yeah, you should do. You should create like a little image. Yeah, like they're like these these memes, right? And then the future is dream coding, and then you get about 50,000 people who respond. Oh yeah, that's the latest thing. Quick, let's write a book about it. Let's write an O'Reilly book about it.
You could have a picture of me sitting watching TV with the headset on.
Exactly. There you go. You heard it here first on the Praxi Pod.
But it's interesting, like going back to the Star Trek thing, the comment that came back to that is there's no AI in Star Trek. And I was like, but there is, it's everywhere. You just don't know it's there. And I think that's quite an interesting thing.
Yeah, but you see, you know, in Star Trek, the 2025 version, you'd be Scotty, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You'd be. I'm down in the engine room. We've got a problem, Mr. Kirk. Captain Kirk, we've got a problem.
I've got the hat and everything, so it's like
well, you see, I just need a little Star Trek thing on my. I've got the colour. You see, I've got the colour. You can see this little Star Trek badge.
I did have someone. Someone gave me a Star Trek communicator for birthday a while ago. So I did have that, and you could flip it over and it go. It was cool. It made all the noises and everything. But now I've got a mobile phone.
Okay. But you're analogizing Star Trek versus what was the other dimension you were explaining about?
Terminator, the sort of robots taking over the world.
Okay. And what was the vote on that then? They said, were they voting more towards which version?
Yeah, it was like, are we gearing ourselves up for a dystopian future? Like most of the standard kind of media take the approach that we are heading towards a dystopian future. So, like when you look at the thing that is going to get the most clicks, we have like the algorithms that drive things on LinkedIn is all kind of based around what's going to get trolled the most, I think, is basically. So people that turn around and say, all your jobs are doomed and you've got 3 months to sort it out, or, this won't exist in a year's time, or, it's just all of that fear mongering, and usually from CEOs of various companies. To me, that's just marketing. That's getting their name out there. They're becoming thought leaders in these areas, but nothing that drastic really ever happens. It's kind of, there's not that much drama going on, but that really feeds into the dystopian future narrative. So you end up in a situation where there's no work, nobody's earning any money, we're all on universal basic income, and we might as well just be living in 1984.
No, I was just looking at who were the villains in Star Trek, and obviously there's the Klingons, there's the Romulans, and there's Khan. You see, you can't, yeah.
Khan's the best. Khan is what was it? Ricardo Montalban.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right up there. His best role ever. Yeah, the Wrath of Khan. They tried to reinvent him, didn't he? I can't remember who played Khan. But the Romulans were always interesting because they were like cousins to the not the Klingons, the Vulcans.
Oh, really? Were they? Okay. So Spock was always kind of a bit torn.
Yeah. It was, but there was no robots. Well, apart from the Borg, actually. No, the Borg was that they turned up. They were like the AI dystopian future where the hive mind basically grabbed everybody. But we bet them. They were defeated, ultimately by our humanness.
So in terms of like, we talked about, so what you're saying is that in terms of AI, you're saying that you and your groups you're in and the customers you're working with and things you're observing is that we're going from like, I know you talked about hype cycle, but we're getting into more focused use cases of using AI. So it's not as though people are saying we don't want to use AI. They're saying we want to be more particular. Is that right? Is that so? They do it kind of like so. They're kind of cutting through the noise and saying, okay, where can we really apply it into our business? Where can we really make a step change? Is that what you're kind of seeing now? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's a period of consolidation. So the projects I'm working on, the things that I'm talking about with colleagues, is really about the practicalities of how we include these tools into our enterprise architectures. So I think the early adopters have gone in, have just kind of gone maximalist on it, and they've gone and built a lot of stuff. The fundamental
shakeout that happening now. It's like the shakeout, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think we need to kind of consolidate the advances we've made and then bed that into normal ways of working. So I don't like the term vibe coding, because I think vibe coding is not what I'm doing. But I'm using these tools.
We've already rebranded it. It's dream coding now. It's dream coding.
Yeah, dream coding. Not quite yet there. I think I could dream of it working. That would be a good way to do it.
Zero bugs. Zero
But these tools are really good at reviewing large amounts of code and being able to identify things that would take me a lot longer to manually find. And so I can use it to be much more productive. And I think the ability to switch on, just like chat, just discuss the code, and then move into a writing mode to then make changes to the code is a completely new way of working.
Is that using things like Cursor then, or is that something else that you've been using there?
Yeah, Cursor. So Windsurf is what I've been using a lot this year. All these tools are very new, and I never really got to grips with Cursor. So I'm not being rude about it, but it felt more like a toy. It's infuriating in that it can get itself down. When you start to get into something complex, it goes down a dead end, which is very difficult to back out of. And it's the same with all these tools like Bolt and Lovable, and I've been across using them, and they're very good at producing something really quickly, so long as it's not too complex.
Oh, right. Okay, I see. Interesting.
Like, I couldn't produce Microsoft Word using Cursor. That's a gargantuan effort. And it's always a good example. It comes down to there was a blog post probably about 15 years ago where it set out the idea of the kind of gap between your kind of entrepreneurial CEO that doesn't really know the technologies and a technologist, is that they come up with this phrase "shit's easy." So it's like a kind of allegory around that, and it's this guy that posted on some bulletin board and said, if I started on Friday and I had a good idea of what I'm doing, how much of Microsoft Word could I write over a weekend? I know what Microsoft Word is and I understand how it does. And if I started now, how much would I get? And the kind of responses that came back says it took 4 years just to put the core of that together with a whole team of people that know way more about it than you do. And it took 10 years for it to be good. So, what are you going to do in a weekend? Basically nothing. But crack on, because shit's easy. I think we're kind of at that stage, is that the tools we have are no doubt massively powerful to carry out lots of small tasks. They can definitely do it. And you don't need much technical know-how to get something really good out of it. But it's almost the same as the kind of the whole skunkworks mentality, that if you've been an IT director in any size of business, you know that you've got all sorts of people developing all sorts of stuff all over the place, and it's impossible to kind of manage and control. And so you end up, having to embrace some of that, because people do develop good things that are not part of the IT.
Is that what you call shadow code rather than shadow IT?
Shadow IT.
Code.
Yeah, and that's kind of what this stuff does, is it just puts that shadow code on steroids, but also lulls people into the idea that they don't need developers, which is ultimately, if I put my consultant hat on, that's fantastic, because that's just queuing up decades worth of work in fixing things.
Yeah, I mean, there is. So, I mean, we had Patrick Dubois. You probably know him, the father of DevOps. He's now working more on this AI native development, like frameworks and toolkits, a bit like the thing we just talked about. So he came on the show in late last year. Fascinating conversation, because he was all last year, he was trying to get his head around all this stuff. And he said there's some massive gains, but it's still a bit nascent in a number of areas, which is kind of what you're kind of saying as well, is that there's some green shoots, but it's not quite there in all the different dimensions.
Yeah.
And it still needs the conversations to work out how you have a robust, showing my age now, SDLC, software development lifecycle.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially when you've got a lot of people involved.
Yeah, and there's more. Well, that's where it all starts to fall down, is that coordinating more than one. It's the same with all of these technologies. So I've been in situations more than once where someone's gone, well, I could do this in ChatGPT. And it's like, well, yeah, you could do it in ChatGPT, but could you get 40 people to do it in ChatGPT? all at the same time. And get that this is where I'm talking about consolidating it down, is that you need to be able to use these tools in teams, and you need to coordinate across teams, and you need to not lose a transaction. You can't have a situation where you kind of type something in and nothing comes back.
But is the mindset here that, because I remember we had another discussion about this, about this 10x productivity. Do you need 10 developers? Can you do the same output with one developer versus 10 developers? So you don't need the tools to be as team oriented because you've got the productivity gain. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's like a valid point or not valid point, but I just thought it was an interesting perspective.
That's a really interesting question. I don't think that we're not at the stage where we have a clear answer to that. I've got an opinion on it, which is that in these tools in the hands of really senior developers are really powerful, and you can get large productivity gains. But I think as you come down the experience ladder, if you give that to a junior who doesn't quite have the experience of putting together entire systems, then they can negate all the productivity gains that you can get further up the chain.
And stumble a bit and struggle a bit, yeah.
Well, and they can undo good things, and they can kind of create all sorts of, like, take Lovable, for instance.
Potentially create some like technical debt, effectively, you're not aware of.
Yeah, and horrible technical debt. So I've seen a Lovable app which had all the usernames and passwords hard-coded into the JavaScript.
Wow.
Which was being sent back to the client. But the system worked. I think it's just, that's not really what Lovable is about. So it'll do things it's trained on something. So somewhere someone's done that, and that's okay. But you can't use that in production.
I wouldn't say that's best practice. It's kind of more a risky practice.
Yeah, and you don't know. Like, if you don't know what you're looking for, you're not going to check that it's done these things. So you couldn't really use Lovable in that way in production, because I think there's security problems that he doesn't really understand. And
so how do you see this playing out? I mean, we know we're now in, getting towards the middle of 2025. Any kind of view on what's going to happen in the rest of this year and into 2026? Any kind of, I'm not saying you have to get your crystal ball out, but what do you call your crystal haggis? You can get your crystal haggis out. Look into the haggis.
Progress. Yeah, the progress this year has just been amazing. I'm using Windsurf on all my projects, and productivity gain wise, from my own personal productivity, it's huge. Where it gets harder is coordinate across teams, but Windsurf has some tools to be able to deal with that really work. So the idea of having like a supervisor layer so you can coordinate a number of developers across a piece of code, just starting to address that. There's Augment AI, which is dealing with some of these issues, like being able to run development agents, and then the DevOps and the different disciplines that you need. One of the areas,
like for release management and stuff.
Yeah, release management,
control,
QA and testing, and these sorts of things. That all of that is AI is going to play a big part in that entire way of working. And I've got my own SDLC with these tools, which is really working. But it's taken quite a few months to kind of hone that and figure it out. And there's quite a lot of upfront investment you need to make in teaching the system the standards that you want it to adhere to, and the architectural practices and all the rest of it. So it's like sitting down and investing the same amount of time you would do in starting up any project. You got to kind of lay out the rules.
It's coaching and guidance and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, which is the whole like nonsense around vibe coding, is that's just hacking. That's hacking with AI. And hacking with AI will get you it'll get you a lot of the way there to start off with, but it'll also is more likely to break and not be completely.
Is the vibe coding stuff more like for like a prototype? You get to a prototype stage, and then you kind of got to pass it over to a proper process.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a guy that I follow on LinkedIn, Steve Proctor. He's developing a system that kind of allows founders to put together these prototypes, and I think that he's definitely on the right track with that. I mean, I think the stuff that he's doing is exactly the way it needs to go. And I mean, I follow him with a lot of interest in the stuff that he's doing, because I think that founder-driven, experienced CTO that knows how to describe the vibe coding and take somebody on that process becomes a really valuable, almost co-founder to your entrepreneurial idea. But that only gets you so far. And then the rest of it comes down to, you actually have to have like all the traditional things that you need, like a viable business. It's like kind of, you still need to make money. You still need to be able to kind of grow your thing. And AI is not going to help you do that necessarily. It can help you with the marketing. It can help you, organize your business a bit better, and can do all your PA type work and your admin. AI will be all over that. And so the size of business, and Dan Priestley is really good at talking about this type of stuff as well, is that, you end up with like a 5-man billion-dollar company. And we're already seeing these starting to come about. So the amount of people you need to achieve quite a lot of complexity is a lot smaller than it was, say, 2 years ago. But you still need skills. Like, unskilled people are not going to be able to do this. The experience counts for a lot. So in the hands of skilled and experienced people,
you can really fly.
Transformation.
Yeah. But then what that highlights is the people who are not. It's this kind of hybrid evolution, isn't it? Where people who've got some technical foundations and they can put the business skills together. Then if you've got no technical appreciation, you could get left behind, because basically you just don't know how to leverage these new innovations. Is that kind of down the same kind of thing what you're thinking? Or?
Yeah, I think like probably an analogy that could be quite good is that it's like flying a helicopter but with no training. You'll be able to start it up, the blades will spin round, but once you get off the ground, you're probably going to die. It's like the projects I've seen go catastrophically wrong. Like, so it's good.
Looks like a good lift off, and then boom.
Yeah. It's going places. Look at how much we're doing. Well, no, it's not working. Oh no, it's really not working. And then it's bust. So what do? You start again. You go.
The rotor blades are coming off. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're sideways and everything. And if you're really unlucky, you've managed to make it to 100 feet. So I think that there's these tools lull you into kind of quite a euphoric sense of achieving things, which is great. And I'm not dissing it, but it's when it goes wrong, unless you really understand why it went wrong, you're not going to be able to recover that. You're actually probably best scrapping it and then starting again and going through another iteration. And that's the advice I've given to people, is build something with Lovable or Bolt, get it to a certain level. If something starts to go awry, just scrap that. Take your prompts, fire your prompts back through ChatGPT saying the prompt didn't really work well. Can you improve the prompt? Use the tools to make better prompts, and then start again. And keep iterating around that process until you get your project finished. But if you get to a point where it does something weird and you have to fix it, then you're in. And they forget what they were doing. So that's the other thing that I think is quite interesting about some of the stuff that I've seen with Lovable, is that it goes along, it's really great. It feels like you're really working on something, and all of a sudden it does something really weirdly left field. Like, I don't know where that came from. It's like
it's like a Public Enemy track, isn't it? Don't believe the hype hashtag.
I think what you were saying before is a great prototyping tool. I've used these tools to prototype, but Windsurf is what I'm using to actually do the heavy lifting. And it's not. I can understand why OpenAI's just bought them for $3 billion. I think it's worth that. I think the stuff they're doing with unless
you put a counter bid in, you need to get that counter bid in quick if you're gonna whip it from under their noses.
I was looking to see. I haven't even got usually I've got a pile of coins on the end of this. Even that's gone. So it's I think that's actually probably good value for money, because I think what OpenAI get for their $3 billion is a tool that's able to really augment what is an extremely complex task with all of the things that you need to make that task work. And if you can do that for development, you can do that for any other part of a business. So I think we're going to see a transformation in tools. I mean, I think ERP systems. So if I was to look at like the target for that, you imagine an ERP system that can do most of the work as well. That's kind of where I think the next big apps are going to come along, is an ERP system that requires just a handful of people to work it, because it can carry out also most of the
with the
tasks
agents,
that
stuff
each
like
of the
that.
departments need,
Yeah,
especially accountants.
interesting.
Why would you need accountants? I think
because they're nice. Because
yeah, but you probably just need one really good bookkeeper, and then that's it. So I think we're going to go through where businesses can become a lot leaner, but the creativity is what humans will provide. So how do you differentiate one business from the other? And it will be the creativity that drives that business.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it's a while ago. It's October 2023 when I was in Copenhagen, when I went to the GoTo conference and presented about Beyond Gen AI. And actually, literally that day, I actually added it to my presentation. McKinsey forecast that it would accelerate the transformation of a true operating model of the future by 10 plus years. And, what's happening now, circa 18 months later, we're talking about the same kind of topic, that it's actually that you can see that you can see that potential scenario in the future.
Yeah, but also
interesting scenarios.
Lowers the barrier to entry for a lot of things as well. So
exactly,
I think we could be entering into the great age of entrepreneurialism, where that becomes much more something that's achievable for a much larger amount of people.
Which is not a bad thing. It gives us people choice, doesn't it? Another path. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you very much for coming on today's show. It's been a smorgasbord of different topics.
Rambling chat.
No. I mean, I think it's interesting. It's an interesting journey you've been on. It's also good to hear that you're keeping your hand in. I think that's the thing. Is it's such a fast developing area that and obviously, you are a very well respected, chief technology officer. So it sounds like you're obviously continuing that thing where you're helping people, guide people down this kind of journey, because it's not pretty complex. It's pretty, if you're a business CEO, you're going, which way do I go? There's so many different choices, and actually curating that to say this is what you should do for your particular business model is very valuable. So, I mean, in terms of people who want to know more about what you're doing and follow you and everything like that, what's the best way of finding you on the, as Peter Kay would say, on the Tinternet?
Yeah, so my main website is flowfoundry.io, but the main products I'm focused on at the moment is engine.digital.
Okay.
So that's the helmsman for marketing department. We pulled together a whole bunch of marketing AI-based agents and packaging that up.
Okay, cool.
To offer that out to businesses and agencies. But yeah, it's that's probably the main place. We've got a sign-up mechanism there, so you can sign up for our beta and various startup offers.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah,
fantastic. Well, we'll look forward to speaking very, very soon again. And that's been Angus Gow, co-founder of Flow Foundry, I think. Is that right? Co-founder of Flow Foundry.
Yeah.
And Engine Digital. So you never work on one thing. You've always got like lots of plates spinning, which is always good.
Yeah, can't be idle.
Exactly. And have a lovely afternoon wherever you are. You're down in Cardiff. And that's been Andrew Turner, host of the Praxi Pod. See you all soon.
Cheers.
Ciao.